Computer.
Yeah.
Okay.
There.
This is the uncut part of Allison Answers podcast. Okay. And this is what we do in the beginning of our YouTube. This is Allison Answers. I have Dan LaRocco with me, but I'm not introducing him yet because the podcast didn't even start. This is the background. This is Dan and I hanging out before we start our podcast. Now you are in on the inside scoop of what we do here. Okay. Are you ready?
Yes.
So what we're going to do is we're going to record and we are then going to do our intro. Make sure Dan is a musician also, of other many talented things that he is. But what we're going to do is do it. Hey guys, it is Allison from Allison Answers. Welcome to our show. Hey guys, it is Allison from Allison Answers. We are so excited about today's show. We're doing something definitely different, and I love it because we have the man here, okay? Do you guys notice? Oh, you can't notice because you can only hear me, but the people who can see me know that Ryan is not here, okay? And we have Daniel LaRocco, who happens to be an hysterically funny guy. Besides being funny and cute and charming and diplomatic and really, really a stand-up, good young man, he is a person of character, of drive, of intelligence. I happen to have known him most of his life. And he grew up as he grew up as like the way I'm introducing him is actually hysterical because I was about to say he grew up as my son Caleb's best friend, like as if like he doesn't have an identity, like he's Caleb's best friend. But no, he was one of my son's very dear friends, like their whole life. They grew up together. And I invited Dan on the show because, not just because I know him, because really I don't care about that. You know how many people I know that I would never have on this freaking show? Dear Jesus, like you would all be like, oh my God, are you kidding me, Allison? All right, but Dan stands out because Dan's a comedian, but not only that, he's like interesting and funny, and he has a lot to say. He has a lot of insight into what our mission is. So I'm just going to remind everybody here about our mission, what we're about here. And the main goal is we want everybody to recognize that we do not have to live in an automated world where we just continue to be the same thing day in and day out, and we are auto-corrected by the social norms around us, by what other people think, by criticism, by when we start to move too far out of the box of what seems normal to society or just to friends or the small community we're in. What happens is the haters or the people who don't really kind of feel comfortable with what we're doing will somehow shut it down. It could be through little nuances. It could be little, just a silent kind of look of disapproval, which I am so hypersensitive to because I'm a sensitive human. So basically, what I'm here to help others with is to help people to be able to break the baseline, become everything they were meant to be, everything that God designed them to be from the time they were little, and the world has shut down through trauma, through distorted thinking, through these feelings that we've become so addicted to that they feel like they're us. Fear, depression, all of these things, guilt, these are the things that keep us from being the people that we're meant to be. So if I can reach anyone, even the kid in the basement that I talk about, somebody somewhere who isn't able to get help, who isn't able to go to a therapist, we want to be able to reach them. Dan has a great message. I'm going to talk to him about just his life and, along the lines of this topic, but also just him as a person. You're going to find him interesting and funny, and I'm just looking so forward to it. Please, if you could subscribe, review, if you could follow us, Allison Answers on Instagram, Logger Counseling Services. Dan, what's yours?
Dan_LaRocco is my Instagram, and Daniel LaRocco is my Facebook because that's my name. So
Okay, Daniel, as Daniel is spelled, and LaRocco, LaRocco. Okay, so Dan, how does it feel to be here today?
oh, it feels good. My room's a little warm. My feet are kind of sweaty, but that's all right. My chair is. I've had this chair for a really long time, and I've never liked it once.
And so,
Literally,
we
it's like this weird. You can see it's
yeah.
like it's kind of got weird angles to it.
Does it make so you continue to sit in a chair that you hate for years and years and years? This is a metaphor for life. Holy shit! This is a metaphor for life. I knew I'd find something out of that.
This isn't a great
Yeah.
representation of me. I'm stuck in my ways, guys. No, that's not true. But it feels really nice to be on here right now. Honestly, I'm really excited for this. I've been looking forward to this for, I don't know, a couple weeks, but we're doing it.
We're doing it. Yeah. So Dan, let me ask you about, so how did you consider or think about becoming a comedian? Like what drove you in that direction?
What drove me in that direction? A lot of things drove me in that direction. So when I was growing up, I was homeschooled, and being at home all the time, waking up at 11, that was awesome every day. Never had to make a bus, which was sweet. I had a lot of downtime for sure, but I did all my work. And I was like 12, 11. I had Pandora, the Pandora radio things. I don't know what my first exposure to it was, but I remember finding, I forget which, I think it was Mike Birbiglia. He's a comedian. I found I must have seen a video online or something, and I found his Pandora station. And I would just put it on, and it would just cycle through different comedians and like 5-minute long bits. And I would just have that next to me playing every day while I was growing up doing school at home. I'd be doing school, my phone would be next to me, just playing some sort of comedian. I'd be listening to that. From Mike Birbiglia, I found Louis C.K., and then I had his Pandora station. And then I had Bill Burr's Pandora station. Sebastian Maniscalco started coming up, and I had Brian Regan and Dimitri Martin and all these comedians. Before I knew it, I had like 13 different Pandora stations.
I didn't even know that about you. You would like regularly listen to comedians.
I didn't listen to music. It was and that's probably shocking to hear with me being.
It is.
Yeah, the big musician. I just would just listen to comedy all the time.
What would you do that? Do you know?
There was something about the energy of listening to a comedian just like reorient regular words to like elicit laughter, and then just have this whole big audience reaction. And it's just like, I would just listen to it and I was cracking up. It was hysterical to me, and I'm listening. Before I knew it, like, Dave Chappelle and Dane Cook, those two huge comics also, like, I was just listening to all this stuff and I knew their bits. And slowly it just like stirred this thing in me about just like, I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to, what?
Do you think you like the energy, like the excitement of it? Like,
oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It's changing an environment, like looking at one thing and making it, like looking at it from a different standpoint. Is that like what it is? And then like seeing it from a comical perspective?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting because there's different, like, I guess, mediums or platforms that comedy can be done in. Right now in Pandora, or back then, I was just listening to it. And then you watch it on Netflix, and then you watch it on YouTube. And when you watch it, it's so much different because you're seeing their personality and their body movement go into it. And then what crushes all of that is when you're there. Like when you're there in the room, in that energy, you can't listen to something and really comprehend and be like, oh, I got all of it. You didn't get all of it. Like when
Yeah.
you're there and you have that perspective and you're a part of that with that comedian, because that's essentially what it is. Comedians, they're like inviting their audience to be a part of something,
Yeah.
So for me growing up, I would listen to that and I just found myself becoming really funny. Middle school, high school, people would tell me all the time, you got to do comedy, you're hysterical. And I would just by hanging out with people, like we'd all be laughing and I'd make a joke. And I found myself just like my brain was getting very quick.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say I was Spider-Man. There's nothing like that.
Makes
But like,
sense.
well,
Yeah.
I think that just by listening, again and again and again, like I'll say I was probably obsessed with it. I'm not even kidding. Like when I was growing up, on like the amount of stations I had and the amount of different people, I was, mildly obsessed. And
I had no idea. That's fascinating.
yeah,
Yeah.
just hearing how quick they were when it was crowd work, responding to something, and just having all these different opinions and perspectives and way of looking at life and interactions and society and all these dynamics. After a while, I think it just kind of stirred something in me. And for me, like growing up, I'd have a lot of people be like, you got to do this. Like, you're freaking funny. And I was 14, 15. I'm like, thanks, but I'm never going to be able to do that. Like, that is far beyond me, right?
What made you think that you couldn't?
I was 14. I was 15. I was just the kid who liked listening to it. I never actually considered like doing it. I would say, yeah, it'd be cool to do it. But I was 14. I was never like, there was always this roadblock. For some reason, I was disqualified by saying like, this is beyond me.
I
Right?
have to say something about that. I have to comment. Don't lose your train of thought. But right there, this is what this podcast is about. You're
Yeah.
14 years old. You see other people doing it. And
Yeah.
somehow there's a divide between you and those people. Maybe it was your age. I don't know. You'll tell us in a minute. But to me, that is what we want to overcome. Because if they're doing it, what makes you someone who can't? That's not true. Like these ideas, like Henry Ford says, either you think you can or you think you can't. Either way, you're right.
Right.
So it's like, I feel like somehow you have this moment, where you're enjoying this and it's so and you're only 14, you're only going to grow.
Right.
But you can't envision something. And now I have to do a little neuroscience and we'll go back to you. Ryan told you I talk a lot.
Yes,
sorry.
You did.
Sorry, not sorry. Not sorry, it's on my necklace. But anyhow, so listen, this is the thing, right? What you just said. You said somehow I was disqualified. That's not somehow, because, and this is what I want people to hear, neurologically, our body is a whole record of memory. Daniel LaRocco, comedian today, was not a comedian at 14. Daniel LaRocco was preparing in his mind, and he was training his brain, and he was developing from thought, and his inner world was becoming. He was transforming into a comedian now, but in his memory, his whole record of memory at 14 years old, he had zero experience being a comedian on a stage, interacting with an audience. So in order to get there, he only can go into his neurological network and work with the pathways that he has that tells him, I haven't done it, therefore it can't be done.
Right.
And that's where creative thought comes in. That's where you create something that does not exist. And that's what you did.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to do when you are the top comedian in the United States. Don't you laugh. Don't you dare laugh on this podcast. Okay. Don't you laugh. You're a comedian, but don't laugh. Okay. So we can go back to it. I had to do my plug, neuroscience.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Okay.
For the plug.
You were disqualified.
Yes. And what I'll add to that really quickly is that, how when people are like, the reason I felt like I was disqualified is because when girls are young, they want to be a princess. The boy wants to be a cowboy or whatever, or the girl wants to be a cowgirl. The boy wants to be astronaut, a detective, all this cool stuff. I wanted to be a comedian. So that was my like fantasy occupation, right? Yeah. little girl, I want to be a princess when I grow up. I'm like, I want to be a comedian. They're like, you'll never, all right, probably not, but we'll see.
Yeah.
So
Did you
for
get
me,
that vibe from people? Like that they were kind of like, oh, cute. Like it wasn't
I
like,
got that vibe when I started taking it seriously. I'll get to that in a
yeah.
second. When I was younger, everyone, they were coming to me. They were kind of planting the seed in a way of like, you should really think about doing this. Mike Nazada was a huge one. There was one kid who was like, you gotta do, really weird kid. You might know him. Luke Keating's his name.
Luke's my son.
Yes, he's your son. He's weird. Just kidding. I love Luke.
He's such a weirdo.
Luke.
Greatest weirdo ever. Yeah.
I
Sorry.
will say this. Luke, no, you're fine. Luke was probably one of the most encouraging
Oh,
to me.
yeah.
Absolutely. Hands down. I remember just recently I actually saw, have you ever found one of your old social medias and been like embarrassed?
I get embarrassed about so many things, Daniel. I don't even know if I could count.
Well,
Okay.
I found one of my old Instagrams that it somehow was still alive, and I got access to it, and I got back into it. Deleted it in 5 minutes, but before I did, I apparently made a post, and it was from like 2000. I don't know, man. It must have been like 2010 or 11, and it was a
Yeah.
text from Luke, and it was this like, man, I love you. You're the greatest. I want to help you with your dreams and shit and becoming a comedian. And I think you're going to do great things. And it was just this like me reading that from 9 years ago and then being like, it was just a dream. And I just did 2 shows last week. I started last year and I've performed in the city and I've performed at Governor's and I've performed at all these different clubs. And like looking at that, it was like, I was proud of myself and I was so thankful for someone like Luke,
Yeah.
You need those encouraging moments, those encouraging people. Because sadly, I think more often than not, you'll come across people who aren't that encouraging. And I've had that too. When I started to, if I'm 14, no one's really going to go like, you're never going to do it. Just shut up and like
Right.
do your school.
Yeah.
Like that's not going to happen. You're a little kid. Like I said, it was my fantasy thing that I wanted to do. People were like, yeah, blah, 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 you should do it. But when I started to really kind of take it seriously last spring is of 2019, I was like, I think I want to do this. I was like, I had been writing down jokes for like years, literally just in my phone. You can swipe through the notes app and it's just like nonsense.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just been doing that for so long, not with any goal in mind, honestly, not like I'm going to do this joke on stage. Like I wasn't practicing comedy. I wasn't taking any steps to do it at the time while I was writing these things down. It was funny to me. And I thought it was an interesting observation and a conversation starter. I'd tell people that and they'd laugh. And I'm like, hey, that's kind of good. And there was this, what made me get into it was this one, this comedian, this Long Island comic. His name is Tim Crompier, very funny guy. And he comes into my job and I was making him a cappuccino, extra cinnamon. And I was telling him, I was like, man, I'm thinking about doing comedy and like starting at like going like an open mic. And he goes, oof. He goes, I'm sorry. He said, I'm sorry. I was like, oh God, that sounds horrible. So he had told me about this class that, the Governor's clubs had done. And I decided to get involved in the class. And I took the class and the first day we were up on stage. And it was literally just like practicing being on stage with a microphone. You'd be surprised how bright those lights are, how much you can't see. You'll get a little gap where you can see. There's so much stimulation once you're up there. And that first time of stepping on there, just with like the 12 kids who were in my class and our instructor, I was like, I felt so comfortable.
Oh, wow.
Strangely, like it was this weird calming, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was strange. And it was just like a lot of my life had led up to that. I wasn't doing a show. It was just getting comfortable. He would ask us questions like, who's your favorite comedian? Bill Burr. Where'd you grow up? Massapequa, blah, blah, blah. Like we weren't doing jokes yet, obviously. That comes way later on. And it was just getting comfortable. And I found myself very comfortable. And at one point I said something just in conversation that made them laugh. All of them cracked up and I cracked up. And it was just 12 people. And it was the first time I was on a comedy stage with the lights going, holding a microphone. I say something, audience reaction, blah, and I just immediately thought to those like Pandora channels.
Wow.
And those comedians, and listening to that chemistry between them and the audience. And I was just like, that's that. On a smaller scale, of course,
Yeah.
Madison Square Garden, but like on a small, very small scale, but still it had the same, it had the impact on me that I needed, you know. I'm not gonna say like taking the dive into doing that class was comfortable. It absolutely wasn't comfortable. I was extremely nervous. I remember I signed up for the class. I was outside, was looking at the club. I was in my car and I'm like, you can't do it. You're not going to make it. All the doubt was just seeping in. I was so nervous. I had a lot of anxiety. And I think that if we're, and I mean, you kind of have to gauge it with some things, but I think that if we're like nervous or anxious about something, it's probably because we're really close to something that means a lot to us, something very important, you know? And I was like, Dan, get the hell out of your car. Don't listen to that crap. Like, you got this, leave, go in there, blah, blah, blah. And I did. And I walked in super uncomfortable. Everyone's just like, you're doing this too? I don't want to be here. Like, everyone's just like, what are we thinking? You know, because it can be intimidating. Having role models is very important to have role models and people you look up to, especially in a career like that.
Yeah.
But to see them having mastered it and have such a chemistry and just this flow and this like coherence with their sets, and then you go up there and you're just like, I stubbed my toe the other day, and everyone's like, oh yeah, that's like, you suck when you start. You suck. You're not good. You're not good at all. And it can kind of be a little discouraging to see people really good, but at the same time, you just have to recognize where you are. You're not going to be great at the beginning. You're probably not going to be, if just strictly talking about comedy, you're probably not going to be very good for a year, 2 years. Like, you'll have some good bits here and there, but until you're like comfortable and flowing and zinging and you got a nice like 8-minute set, that's time. That's a lot of time, and it's a lot of reps. And I'm rambling here, I think. But
no, you're not. Can I say, I have like 3 things I have to say, because what you're saying is so profound. I'm not sure if you're recognizing that it's profound. Do you know when you're saying it that it is? You don't hear it.
I think so.
I hope so, because it's like 3 things I heard, and I actually wanted to write it down. If anybody sees me writing anything down, it's because I'm trying to be quiet. So then I'll bring it up later. But basically, one thing you said, you talked about this repetition of like listening to people. And then I was hearing you talk when you were just talking just before about, you know, studying comedy. I don't remember the words you used, but I was thinking there's something in the book called Think and Grow Rich, and it talks about specialized knowledge. And specialized knowledge is what you have been obtaining since you're 12 years old, through listening and observing. And you also mentioned having role models, which is another avenue to success. Because if you listen to any success gurus, anybody who talks about success, role models, just modeling, looking, observing, your observation. Now, this is the thing that stands out to me, is that people think this idea of luck, right? That somebody gets their shot or whatever it is, like stuff like, oh, I was discovered, this whole thing. But there's this philosophy, and I believe it to be true, that it's kind of like you have to be preparing. You've been gaining knowledge and moving incrementally, which creates an exponential result, because when that moment shows up, like I heard somebody say that luck or like divine intervention, whatever, shows up like a bus. It just keeps showing up and keeps showing up. But are you ready for it? So during that silent time, that period of time when you're not, let's say nothing's happening, but you're listening and you're studying and you're out with your friends, you're making jokes, whatever, you're creating something. When that shows up, you're ready, right?
Right.
Right. And I was thinking about you saying that because that is it's such an important success principle that I want everybody to hear. That you mentioned this idea of specialized knowledge. We don't sit around and wait for our break. Like these guys, nobody's an overnight success. That's a
Right.
bunch of bull malarkey. Basically, Dan's been at this. One day you're just going to see him and they're like, oh, this guy's so funny. And he just is an overnight success. No, absolutely not. He's been doing this forever, right? So
Right.
now, another thing that is just interesting to me is this idea of like you have this. It talks about that also that this kind of definiteness of purpose.
Hmm.
Like if this when you got up there in the lights, right? It was like your sweet spot. Like it was where you belonged, right? You could feel it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, I feel like when you know you have your definiteness of purpose, talks about that in Think and Grow Rich, you have this kind of definiteness of purpose, and then you have a persistence. And
Hmm.
that's what we were talking about before we got on this, that like this persistence can be knocked down by criticism, right? That the fear of criticism becomes greater than our desire for success. And I heard you override it. Like when you were saying, I can't in that car, and something else, because that was your thought loop, that
Yeah.
was your belief, something inside of you. And you immediately you overrode it, you pivoted, and you created a new thought. No, I'm doing this no
Mhm.
matter what. Right.
Right.
And so as we're listening to Dan, like these are all success principles. I'm going to watch him. We're all going to watch him. See, I'm going to communicate to him, just like Luke did, that over my dead body, you're not going to be at Madison Square Garden. That's bullshit that you wouldn't be. That's ridiculous. Why wouldn't you be? What would be the reason that you can't? You're funny as hell.
Right.
So, yeah. So, yeah, right. But don't you wait? And I have a question, and then we'll go back to what you're saying.
Hmm.
Do you ever feel like if somebody's interviewing you, do you feel like you have to be funny? I was thinking about that. Like Robin Williams, I heard him being interviewed, and I'm like, does he feel like he has to be funny right now?
Probably because I think as like a comedian or whatever, you're being presented as a comedian. You're branding yourself. You're marketing yourself. You don't want to, okay, yeah, all right. Like, you don't have to try and perform. It's not a show. We're just hanging out, talking.
Yeah.
But you want to present yourself. You want to get a couple good ones in there because otherwise, people want to see it. Because I feel like it might take people a lot to be watching a video of an interview of someone and say, oh, they're apparently funny. I don't see them being funny right now. They're not going to go, all right, let me go online, let me look up their name and try and find something funny. They want to see it in the moment,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I don't think people,
They don't have patience.
yeah, there's a little lazy. It's a little lazy, it's all good. So,
But think about you, like, so now you're telling this story, right? What do you think has been your biggest obstacle? And is it naysayers? Is it your concern about what other people think? Like what blocks you?
so we didn't even plan that. That's a great
No.
transition into the other thing I was about to say. That same class, he was asking, where I was on stage, and everyone took a turn going on stage and him asking us questions. He asked everyone the same question, said, what stopped you from starting comedy until now? And I was like, failure, plain and simple. I was like, he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm afraid I'm going to say a joke and it's going to fail. It's going to be dead silent. It's going to bomb. People are just going to stare at me. And I'm afraid of that. And he's just like, why? I'm like,
Because
I don't want to be uncomfortable. Like, basically. And at that point, he's like, why? And he's like, you're not going to die. Like, he literally was just like, he's like, that happens all the time. That happens all the time. And I think that sometimes, kind of like what you just said, like, it isn't necessary failure that gets us to fail, but it's the fear of failing that stops us from like even trying in the first place, you know?
You know what? I got to tell you something. It's so weird because this morning I was telling Dan that I just happened to come across in the book I'm reading. It's Think and Grow Rich. I've read it before, but and they're talking about the idea of persistence, and they were talking about people on Broadway. And I'm gonna just say something. If it's okay with you, I'm gonna read it because I think you're gonna like it. But basically, oh God, now it's going to be too long. This is this failure moment where I'm freaking doing that thing where everybody's waiting. Oh, here we go. Here.
Get it.
Let's go.
Bueller.
She's still looking.
Bueller.
Still looking.
Bueller.
So it says in here, every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. Those who can take it are bountifully rewarded for their persistence. Right? So now, what they were talking about people like on Broadway, and it's like what ended up happening is they're describing how these people were so driven that it was the people who this woman had 36. Who is this? And she's famous too, and I don't even know who she is. But basically, she had 36,000 rejections on this Broadway experience, this writing that she was doing, and she never gave up. And it reminds me of of Edison, right? That when somebody interviewed him and they said, well, how does it feel to have had 10,000 failures at creating the light bulb? And he said, I didn't have 10,000 failures. I found 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. Right? And it's like, we are so afraid. And that's, I guess, our theme today is there's this kind of like autocorrect all around us, like these little nuances. Like if you made a joke right here now, and if I didn't laugh, I expect to laugh because I think you're funny, but if like, let's just say that happened, right? If that little feeling, it could be anything. It could be that I had a stomach ache, who knows? But the truth is that we are so, I think comedians, you'll have to tell me if I'm wrong. I think they're more emotional, more in tune, more sensitive. And I'm a therapist. I know I am.
Right.
We're very impacted by other human beings.
Right.
Your opinion of me matters to me. How you're experiencing me matters to me. Now, how do we negotiate being that kind of a person, but then also pushing past that, right? And being exactly who God intended us to be, because really, honestly, if we don't do that, I love Ed Milet says this thing. He talks about how he's like persistent in his drive, that he wants to make sure that the man that he is today, that when he shows up the last day of his life or when he meets his maker, that he sees the creation of what he was meant to be and that it's his twin. He said he wants to be able to get there. Well done, good and faithful servant. And he believes that is him being every stinking speck of what he was meant to be. And like success is our obligation. So I'm saying to you, every time you say, Daniel, oh, I can't. Oh, Madison Square Garden, doubt it. No, that is your obligation. Your obligation as a man who's funny, who has all this to offer, is to offer it to the biggest scale that is meant for your life.
Right.
Sorry, that's
no. Don't apologize.
Okay, so as you're saying what you're saying, I interrupted. I don't remember where I left off.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
So with I remember you were asking about obstacles.
Yeah, and like criticism and also, can I just throw in there cursing, making fun of people, all of that, and being growing up in a Christian home, homeschooled, and then freaking going out there cursing and making fun of the people. Like that is, I love that. That is like such a paradox.
Yes, it's that juxtaposition.
I have a cursing ministry. I do. I'm not kidding. It's true. All right. So yeah, tell us about it. Your comedy and Christianity.
Oof,
Ooh, tell us.
that could be a long thing, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna get to the criticism first.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me get to the criticism first. Lots of criticism because, like I said, when you're younger, people aren't going to criticize you as much. Generally, they're going to be encouraging you more, and they were very encouraging. Luke, Mike Mazzata, my family. And then when I was getting older and taking it seriously and like telling like people at work, I'm thinking about doing this, and like just other like people I know, like I started taking this class, and all of a sudden it was this reality for them. I think like seeing me, I think people get uncomfortable when they see someone else stepping in to what they're supposed to be because it kind of calls them out,
100%. I love that you're
And
bringing that up.
yeah, and
I love
I
it.
had this. Some people would be like, "You really think you can do that?" And like, it's those voices that I was talking about, like just kind of like feeding into and be like, "Do I think I can do that?" And like, yeah, it's a little nerve wracking, but people can be very critical. One girl even said to me, when I said I was doing my show, my first show, it was one of those class shows. She was like, okay, I'll go and I'll laugh even when it's not funny. And there was no hope. There was no faith that I will be funny. She said, I'll go, but when you're not funny, I'll still laugh. I'll still encourage you. So it's like, sounds nice, but it's not nice. That's not a nice thing to say, at all. And she didn't even show up. She wasn't even there at the end of it. And like those are just those little like things that like people, I don't know, they kind of want to put you in your place in a way because they think your place is somewhere else where it really isn't. My place is what I'm stepping into, and like I know my place. So I pursued it and I pushed through, and that show that I did was my first show. You were there.
It was so damn funny. I am telling you, I laughed my ass off. And this was not an obligation either, by the way.
No.
He's fucking, I just cursed bad. Okay, he is funny.
That was the tough one.
That was a bad one. I shouldn't have done that. Okay. I mean, we can't even erase it on this. But no, he definitely, like, I am just not saying that. And I'm not just saying it. He was funny. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
It was before the show. I was at my grandparents' house. And I was so nervous. I took a nap. I don't take naps. I was taking a nap. I was like nauseous, and the show was later. And I just drove myself there, and I felt like I was like driving off the edge of the earth, like as I'm going. And get there, and I'm backstage, and I'm talking with the other comics, and the producer comes in, and he's like, "All right, guys, so before today, we had like 40-something people on the reservation list." And we were like, "That's awesome." He goes, "Yeah, now we have 289. You gotta be, no, like, tell them to go. Like, tell them to go home. Like, if the show's off." And we were all like, all right, okay, I'm just gonna leave. And we're all pacing. No one's talking to each other. We're all just like doing, whatever. And then the first kid went up. And after the first kid went up, he came back, and we're all like, "What was it like? How was it?" We're like crowding around him. He's like, "It was crazy, man." Like, whatever. And the crowd it was a good crowd. It was so encouraging. And I was next. And I was like behind the curtain. I was just like, just a mile a minute. You're going to fail. You're not going to do good. You're going to bomb. You're going to whatever. And I hear him call my name, and I was like, "This is it." And I walked out, and just a sea of people, just 300 people.
It was so packed.
It was
crowded.
So packed.
Yes.
And he was like, "All right." And he left me. And he was just, and I was like, "Wait, like, come back, like, just stay with me." Because, like, me being a musician, what's nice when I do a show, it's me and 3 other people. On stage.
Right.
Comedy, if you hit a wrong note while you're playing, you can just kind of turn. There's other people to focus on. You're by yourself on comedy. Your back's literally up against the wall. And I walked out, and the lights and the clapping and the woo, and I heard my family, and I heard the person I knew, and you can kind of pick them out. And it was just that calm oof, this feels right. The
Wow.
pieces falling together with all the stimulation going on,
Yeah.
with all the lights and all the sounds. And one of the most affirming parts of that whole thing, like that was like, all right, I'm here, let's get into it. And again, I'm gonna fail, I'm not gonna do good, I'm gonna flub a line. Guess what? I did flub a line. I did ruin a joke, I'm pretty sure. I did mess up.
I didn't even notice it.
Thank you. Exactly. I noticed it. And for me, that's like, gosh, I ruined that. But I addressed it and I just kept going. And we talk these things up that we think are going to be so detrimental and so impactful, and it's going to ruin it. I'm just going to go home and cry myself to sleep. But like the positive people who want to see you succeed and are encouraging you, they're not going to notice those things. They're just excited to see you being you up there.
Yeah.
The most affirming thing that I saw during that show, that I knew this is where I was supposed to be, is in the middle of my set, I was doing good, and I looked straight back, and I saw Caleb, and he was just like a prairie dog, just like smiling ear to ear, laughing, grinning, and I just saw you, Caleb, and CJ, and I just immediately, because like I'm talking about my jokes, I'm doing my bits, but at the same time, I'm like, all right, I see them, he's drinking too much, she's loud. It's like there's a lot going on, but I was able to keep it under composure, and immediately.
Was it me that you thought was drinking too much? Is that what you're saying? Because
you were the loud one. You were the loud one. No.
I wasn't, by the way. Okay.
But I saw him, and amongst all this going on and never stopping my jokes or my bits, I just immediately started looking at him and thinking about it from his perspective, and us growing up together, and be like, what does this look like for him? He's seeing, his best friend grow into this person and perform here. And that is, I think, all the pieces coming together, because this is a big thing for him too, in a way.
Yes.
It's like not just about me.
He loved it. He was like sitting like, if he could have like dove into I don't even want to say it. I was going to say I can't say it. If he would have could have dove into you, he would have. He was like, you're going to see, he was like so into it. Yeah.
I remember seeing that. I picked him out and he was just so excited. And I was like, this is good, and this is what, it was all gone. The doubt, or at least it was still there, but it just doesn't mean as much to you. You overcome it. You realize you're stronger than the doubt, because you're never not going to have any doubt.
Yes.
That's never going to stop. You're never not going to be anxious again. You're never going to be nervous.
Yes.
But you knock it down to size, because you're much stronger than you think you are. And you can overcome much more than you think you can,
Yeah. That is such a great statement. I just heard Jim Rohn. He's like an old, he's one of the founding fathers of personal development. He's passed, but one of the things I just heard him say, and it's just like what you're saying. He said, he was talking about the Bible, and this is just like Jesus was, his main, what does he say? His sermon, the sermon that started the church. And he said that there was, I think he said 3,000 people. It doesn't, the multitude, whatever. But basically he said, and there were the mockers, there were the perplexed, and there were those who believed. And he said that every time he would go on stage or whatever, he would talk, that he realized that how come, when asked, what about the perplexed, or what about those who are mocking? He said, they mock because they mock. They're perplexed because they are perplexed. But the ones that believe, that's who I'm speaking to. So he's like, don't expect for there not to be the perplexed there. And he said, how much time do we spend preaching to, or teaching to, or making jokes to the perplexed or the mockers, right? As opposed to, you get in your lane with your believers, the ones who love what you're doing, and you go with them, that's your game, right? That's your thing. So that I thought was cool that I just heard that too. I feel like sometimes I hear things before I speak to someone because it's meant for them.
Mm,
It's almost like that when I heard it out of nowhere, because I listen to him all the time and I never heard him say that.
right.
I just thought that was cool. Like,
Profound.
because people will say, "Oh, how come they're perplexed?" And he's like, "I don't care why they're perplexed. They just are.
Right.
I'm not going to fix that."
Yeah.
So you have the people who are looking at you and they're laughing, they're enjoying it. That's your audience,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. Because the mockers and even some like the more perplexed people right in the middle, they weren't there, you know?
Yeah.
The people who believed in me, the
Yeah.
people who were encouraging me, who meant a lot to me, who loved me, they were there.
Yeah.
The people who want to see me succeed. And
I didn't mean there was any mockers there, by the way.
no. I understand completely what you're saying. You're good.
Mhm.
Because like I've had more people now that they've seen that I've like stuck with it and gotten good at it or better at it, I'll say, and like had some little, successes in it and gotten more shows outside of class shows. And I performed in 3 different clubs in Manhattan and, 2 or 3 different spots in the city. And I've worked with all these different types of people. Like, they're like, oh, wow, you know, you're doing really good. You are succeeding, so like you kind of get like, I'm not saying I'm trying to like win people over, but in the beginning, those people who are like, you are not going to be able to do this. I'm going to laugh even when it's not funny. That girl's never even been to one of my shows. So she's still like, I don't know. I think, like I said earlier, I think there's this thing in people where they feel kind of called out in a way when they watch other people step into who they're supposed to be,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would hope that people would be able to see that and it stirs something in them to be like, let me start that thing that I've been telling myself I can't. Let me take that step to do that thing that I have grown up thinking I can. That person said I can't do. It's like, I would hope that, that would be able to happen with a lot of people. But a lot of people, they don't get there or they're not there yet, and it takes people a very long time to get to those places. It's taken me a long time. Now, I'm probably not going to start comedy when I'm 13 years old because what do I know?
Well, you did start comedy when you were 13. You actually did.
Preparing.
Started on the inside.
Right.
And you were creating it.
Yeah.
And that's where all creation begins. Like, what a man thinks in his heart. We create in our thinking. And you already started. And I feel like there's also in our DNA, this is the really cool concept, is that in our DNA, I believe just like seeds, like, like a seed has, and let's say a seed for an apple tree. Inside that little teeny seed is an apple tree. We put it in the ground. It's like, so I feel like in our DNA, there's all these desires, dreams, visions that are supposed to happen. The little seed, if it could talk, may not say, "Oh, I'm going to be an apple tree." Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. Sure. Right. So now, but inside of you were 12 for God's sakes. And somehow you end up on Pandora doing this thing, right? And listening, and then it becomes an obsession. I feel like that's the watering of some seed inside of you that was meant to be there. And you listened and followed, possibly if you were in school, you wouldn't have. I don't know. You may have been shamed out of it, possibly.
Yeah, no, that's true.
But so now there's like, and there's how many things, and I want to ask the audience, how many things are you shamed out of? I know I've been shamed out of many, and it could be my own shame in my mind, creating the shame because of my perception of what your perception could possibly be of me if I did this possible thing, right? So it's like, I feel like what you're doing, like you're creating, and every single thing is compound interest. Like every step you take, you being on this podcast is compound interest because it's generating. You're giving away what you've gotten. You're creating more of your comedian inside of you. You know what I mean? And it's just going to keep expounding. Is that a word? Expounding? It should be if it's not.
Okay. Expounding.
You're an expounding person, Daniel. Okay. But I got lost. So you hear what I'm saying to you?
Yeah.
That yeah. So like when you hear like things that say like or you see a certain look or whatever you're describing, do you feel like you can overcome it? What do
Yeah.
you have to do that?
Right. You mean like a look?
And it
In,
doesn't even mean that somebody's even meaning it. Just a perception of, oh, what is my perception of your perception of me?
you mean like during a set, like while I'm performing?
Yeah. Yeah. Or like
Yeah.
when you're describing, hey, look, now I have legitimacy. I have credibility to my dream. So now
Right.
I can show you I've done these things.
Mhm.
Right. And now, but when some, let me go to this other thing that you said, because you were saying how people, it shines a light on them when you're stepping into who you are. And I love the way you put it, because you didn't put it as when I'm getting great or when I'm successful. You just said stepping into who you are, because isn't that our greatness? That
Yeah.
really is our greatness, right? No matter where that is.
Right.
And when you said that, like I'm thinking that we're all so, it's not even anybody's fault, but we're so prone, we're so afraid
Hmm.
that we believe that in relationship to one another, that it's either like I'm better than you or I'm worse than you. It's not. And if we see everything that way,
Yeah.
we can't like, so if you're great, I can't be, I have to be worse. Instead of how about like you're great and I'm great. And even if you're the greatest comedian in the whole world, I could also be the greatest comedian in the whole world.
Right.
Like it doesn't matter. We can all be like greatest of greats. And that's, I think, all of our destiny.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of people, they see that, they feel those feelings, definitely, that like, oh, if they're good at this and they're good at what they're doing, then I can't be great at the thing I want to do, because they feel like that. When I was younger, that kind of disqualification in a way. But there's, I don't know, there's just been a lot of different things that have like led to me really being like, no, this is it. Push through, step there. And I'm not saying it was easy. None of these solutions were just handed to me on a plate, and said, I know you'll get through this. Like it was a lot of things I had to do, but I have so many people to thank for the encouragement and for the motivation to push through, because without them, if I was surrounding myself with different people, a different scene, like you said, if I was in public school,
Yeah.
I might have not gotten here. I might have had a completely different life. I would
Yeah.
definitely have had a completely different life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm there and I started, and doesn't mean great right off the bat, because I did like 3 class shows. And then the first show I did in Manhattan, I got my ass handed to me, and it was
You
it was
did?
as nice, because my first 3 shows like knocked it out of there, and it was really good. And I was like, I solved this whole comedian thing. I figured it out. I'm perfect. It's great. And I got bored of my material in 3 shows and said, let me do all new stuff that I've never tried before. And I went out to Broadway Comedy Club, and it didn't go well. It wasn't good. And like there was one show I did where it was a 10 o'clock show. I went on at 12:15 in the morning, and
Yeah.
there was a dude sleeping on the front table.
Oh, dear Jesus. Oh,
There was a guy completely knocked out, and um, it was bad. The crowd was dead, and they were completely. I wanted to be home in bed. I didn't even want to do this anymore. The fun was taken out of it. All this stuff. And I think Mike Mazzotta was there. I think he had to see that, and that was upsetting. I think Mike
oh.
Mazzotta was there. But what was funny is, do you remember when I was talking about that story with my grandmother and the phone call where she thought I was Michael?
Oh, yes, I do. That was so funny.
Yes. So he saw a video of that at my show that I had done on the class shows.
Yeah.
And it killed, it crushed. It was so good. People cracked up and they were dying. And I did it there, and nothing.
Oh,
Nothing happened.
yeah.
And he was like, I wonder what that is when it comes to like, it works there and it doesn't work here. And I was like, well, here's the thing. every different set, every different audience is a whole new set of opinions. It's a whole new set of political leanings and family dynamics and growing up and all these different beliefs.
Yes.
Maybe that other set, coincidentally, all those people had a similar experience with their grandmother, and maybe this show, no one has grandparents. Like, I don't know. Like,
But you also walked in on such low energy,
yeah,
and I feel like, they can measure physi- physiologically. Like if they do they have scans that can measure the level of energy in a room, the electromagnetic.
wow,
Yeah. And what ends up happening is you can literally see on these scans how much energy is in there. So and everything's vibrating. So if it's vibrating super low, it's almost like somebody like you would have to actually bring so much energy in that you'd have to raise the energy of the room. But very typically, we share one another's brainwaves, just like women share one another's periods. Sorry, people, just get over it and don't comment anything negative. We really don't want to hear it. So,
that's the
anyhow,
part you mentioned there.
about they share menstrual cycles. Did you know that?
Oh yeah,
Did you know that?
yeah, I knew. I did. They
Okay.
cycle up and they.
They cycle up, just
Okay.
like the brain, for God's sakes, Daniel. If you're low energy and I'm high energy and I'm going like this and you're going, I don't know, I can't do it together, but it's somehow, just like a guitar string thingy, you would know. But anyhow, it's literally, so you walked into like, probably like sucking the life.
It was.
It was bad, right?
It was
Yeah.
bad. I remember it, and like, I don't know. You kind of, especially in comedy, you have to be very honest. Is it you? Is it the crowd? Is it
Yeah.
the vibe? Do you have stuff going on? Because that's the thing. I remember when I was taking the class, the instructor asked me, he's like, why do you want to do this? I'm like, I want to make people laugh. I want to entertain. I think I got something, and it feels like it's where I, should be, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, all right, the trick to comedy is making people laugh even when you're miserable.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
It's a whole nother thing because, comedians, yeah, we can take a joke and we hang out, but people confuse being able to take a joke with just being rude to a comedian. Just thinking you're a comic, get over it. It's like, yeah, but don't make fun of my face. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because he was like, yeah, you got to be able to entertain and keep that crowd going. Even if you're on the inside, you have some really rough stuff going on. And I've had that, like one show I did, I had some crap going on and, with myself, my own life. And then I was like, just in the back before I went up and I was like miserable. And then I went up, I was like, what's going on? And like, I had done it. I was able to do it, like, thank God, because I was just like, you know what, Dan, disconnect, think about that later, stay in the moment, block that out for now. Don't not feel your feelings, feel them, whatever, all the stuff. But like, just get in the moment. This is priority right now. And just give yourself some time and a break to be able to just think about this, So like, there is a lot riding on that because I'm not saying don't ever be miserable. Don't ever, as for comedians, don't ever, feel depressed, feel anxious, nervous, have other stuff going on, because that's not going to happen. But, it's a big responsibility.
Yeah.
Being able to disconnect if you have some crap going on. And
Well, you mentioned it. You said like it is a big response. I think it was off camera, but you said what a big responsibility to have 300 people that you have to entertain in a period of time. And it's your job to make them happy and laugh. I mean, just think about if you're like hosting a party.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh my God, is the dip good? And are you laughing and having a good time? Like the stress and
Right.
right now you have to make it happen. I'm here for you to enjoy yourself. I'm here to make you laugh.
Right.
I mean, that's heavy, right?
Yeah.
And everything is evaluated. Like, I feel like you're up there, so you're open for critique.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's like, is he good? Isn't he good?
Yeah.
Is he funny? Is he not funny? And right?
Right. Someone actually, just the recent video I posted, I think you had seen it with like the crowd work, where I was talking to this one dude in the crowd. A dude messaged me and he goes, where's the joke?
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait,
And
like during?
no, because I posted the video.
Oh, you posted the the video. Yeah. Okay, got it. I
It's
didn't know what you meant.
funny. I was cracking up, and he's like, "Where's the joke?" And I'm just like, "Do you not hear the like 85 people who were there cracking up? Do you not hear my brother like laughing behind his phone, like at the whole thing? Like maybe he's got a whole bias thing going on because he's my brother, but like it's funny, dude. How can I not explain that to you? Like whatever. I don't know. He's just like, where's the joke? And like people, like I feel like he's one of those. One of those.
Naysayers, mockers.
Yeah, the mockers. Yeah, mockers. I'm just
perplexed. Where's the joke? That's perplexed.
It was critical though. It was a critical, like basically like, where's the joke? Because this isn't funny. Just want you to know that type thing.
Yeah.
And people want to mock just for the sake of mocking.
That's the point.
And it's like it's such a sad, destructive behavior to me. And for me, I'm like, I'm putting this video out there. Here's a little bit of what it looks like when I'm up there and doing all this stuff, and I am confident in this. And then where's the joke? This isn't funny. I'm like, maybe he's right, but
yeah, that's what happened.
Am I going to listen to the 85 voices who are laughing, cracking up, and the people, this is awesome, Dan, great job? Or am I going to listen to the one dude, this isn't funny? And for some reason, that festers in my mind more.
Yes.
Which is strange. That negative, I feel like it just has more of an impact.
It does.
It shouldn't.
You're right.
Shouldn't.
But you know what it really does, Dan? Because if you think about it, like, I don't know, just think about, even if everybody's really, really excited about something, or let's say if there's one person in a room who you feel is being critical about it, doesn't it change your whole vibe? I know for me, like, I know it definitely would.
Right.
Like, it would definitely impact me. That person becomes bigger than everyone else there for some reason.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder, and it's again, like, I think in these ways, like, because the way our operating system, our brain works, is that our brain is always scanning for trouble. So in order to keep us safe. So the amygdala is like everything. It's like high alert, just looking for the one thing that could be a problem. So that's the thing that becomes like physiologically illuminates, like our heart rate, everything becomes more tuned in to the one thing that could cause us difficulty. And I think and our body is set to keep us, to keep us in status quo. So like that one person, and it's interesting because that person who's saying that critical thing is needing to say that for some reason, because you're somehow a challenge to them, or a threat to where they are or something. It's somehow hurting them somehow by you being great. No, really, think about it. It's like, but you know what? We want like, when we do really well, we want it to be something that's going to say, hey, look, you could do it too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like, I'm not limiting you.
Right.
I'm everything. When the water rises, everybody rises, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that like that person just feels this, like we've talked about on today, like that disqualification and that essence of being called out. But it's like me being good at this, or not even being good at it, just pursuing it and trying and giving a crap, is not saying, I'm not the one saying you're not doing what you should be doing.
Right.
I'm not the one saying you're doing bad at this thing you're trying to do, or you're bad because you're not trying to do something. Like that's all like internal for those particular people, and it's also like that people pleasing type thing. I want everyone to love it.
Yeah.
Like at that show of the video I was referencing, there was a girl like the second table back, and she was,
oh God, shit.
And her boyfriend's just like this.
Oh no, they probably just had a fight.
What?
Probably just had a fight.
Well, I think
broke up with him at a comedy show, and you think it's you.
They're staring at me. She's like this, and he's just like this. They're eating nachos, whatever, the whole thing. And And I just saw that, and in my head, I'm saying the jokes. I'm thinking, all right, she hates me. They're fighting. I gotta go home soon. I'm tired. I got work in the morning. All this stuff's going on in my brain. And I said a joke that I knew was one of like my stronger jokes, and it got a big reaction. I just glanced over, and the girl was cracking up. The girl was dying, and he was like laughing too. And I was like, whew, thank God. Like just those two people. Like I was like, all right, all these 80 other people, whatever, they're laughing. I don't care. But these two,
They mattered the most.
yeah,
Yes, that
you know,
makes sense, right?
I very strange.
It
Super
is,
strange.
but that ties it because that was the alert that there's something not right in the room for you and where you're going. And that's like what Jim Rohn was talking about,
Mhm.
that there's going to, like, if there's the mockers, the perplexed or whatever, like we want to win. Like he was saying, like, I used to so much want to teach the perplexed and win them over and
Mhm.
find out why the mockers were mocking and make it better. He said,
Right.
but he was older when he said this. So he said, like, yeah, like I've learned that that's just them, right? But I totally understand that. Of course, you're gonna like be that. You could feel like that was probably like inflamed, like
Mhm.
that part of the room was like you couldn't concentrate because they were there.
Exactly.
You probably got so much energy from them laughing.
Right. Oh my gosh, yeah. When you get that, that big response,
Yeah.
it's just like riding a wave,
Yep.
It's just like it's just like that. And as soon as I realized there was a thing going on with them, or they were blah whatever, I was just like, all right, they're my focus. I don't.
Yeah, but I get it because that was the problem. Like we're saying, like your brain scans for the problem. Let me
Right.
fix the problem, right?
Exactly.
But now if you think about where, like, when you're thinking about going forward, any failure that any of us have, I mean, I know for me, and it doesn't matter. The first thing is like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this or whatever, or like that immediately quit mentality. But
Right.
it's like, but that mindset that failure doesn't even exist in the mind of someone who's going in the direction they're supposed to go, because failure is our education. It's our greatest education that there is. Successful business people see its failure as, if it's $100,000 mistake, $20,000 mistake, that's their business education.
Mm,
And it's like, so
right.
like whatever, you being in that room in Manhattan, that was an educational experience. It was,
Oh,
right? Think about it.
it was because it was the first. I think it was the first or second like real show I was doing. Because the other one's like the class shows. So like this was like the first, like you're in a city crowd comedy club late at night. Nerve wracking. I was like, I'm gonna hit them with the new material. It's gonna go great. I've written it down a week ago. Do it. And I just went up there, and boy, did I get an education. Well, that's a nice way of saying it. Like
Yeah.
I was like, well, never doing that again, And thank God though, I didn't, because like remember when I told you earlier that I was telling that Long Island comedian, I am thinking about doing an open mic,
Oh yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
And he was like, geez, don't do that. After I did the class, I've been to open mics. If I had started at an open mic, I probably would not have kept with it
Really?
because
What is wrong with that? What
they're
is
bad. They're bad, and it's like people, no, they're just not
how
good.
come? How come? You mean
It's
that,
primarily comedians, and everyone's focused on their own material, which is fine. I am too. I'm not trying to be like I listened and they didn't. Like I'm focused on my own things too, right? It's all new stuff. There's like 12 people there. They're all comedians. So comedians, when they listen to other comics, you're just thinking differently about how
yeah.
an audience member who isn't a comic is listening. You just think about it differently. I'm like, oh, where are they going to go? I bet they're going to say this and blah blah blah. You just
Yeah.
whatever.
Different. Yeah.
So you don't get the responses from an open mic at an open mic that you're supposed to get, that you need, because you're working on new material and you want to get, some like constructive criticism and all that stuff. But it was so discouraging. So like, I feel like there's smart ways to go about doing harder things. That's kind of obvious, but like the smart way for me was, work smarter, not harder, that whole thing.
Yeah.
The smart thing for me was to do a class, because that's also like, I'm taking a class. People ask me, oh, people even learn comedy? I think it's an instinct thing. I think you're born with it, all that stuff. And sure, maybe you have some natural thing, but no one's just naturally funny like that. You can learn. There are formulas to jokes, and there's a lot of things you can learn. So like,
It's like
I went
timing,
out.
right? Like
It's like what?
timing. It's like timing, right? Isn't
Yeah,
it? It's like storytelling.
absolutely. I mean, just think of it like acting. There's
Yeah,
acting classes, and
definitely.
acting
I
degrees.
agree.
You go, comedy is natural. You can't learn it. Why is it different?
Yeah, I don't think so.
You
I
know?
had a client who went to a comedy class, and he told me some things about it. I was like, wow, that is fascinating. Like you
Yeah,
learned so much cool stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
You learn a lot of awesome
Yeah.
things. I
Hmm.
like. I knew I was stepping into a hard thing. A tough industry field, whatever. So I was like, let me, not start an open mic. Because then after I went to it, I was like, this is god awful. Like it has very high highs and very low lows. Like when it goes well and you're coasting, you got a good crowd. It's all great feelings. And then when it's not, you're like, I'm just not gonna leave my house again. Like,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Exactly. You better stay the hell home. But you know what? Listen, because it's safe there, but not.
Hmm.
You know what? And I feel like the total, and I don't know, maybe this is the message for you, but I know like if you just persist, you'll go as far as you decide.
Mm.
Like, isn't that weird? If you just like, there's a decision, if you make a decision, definiteness of purpose, never forget that definiteness of purpose. You want specialized knowledge, definiteness of purpose, persistence, right? You want to decide what you want.
Mm.
This is all in Think and Grow Rich. Decide the thing you want, because once you see it, you have a definiteness of purpose, you develop specialized knowledge. Every day you step more towards that, and you
Right.
just persist through it like you never, ever, ever stop. You will get exactly where you need to go.
Yeah.
I remember Ed Milet just said to our group, he said that the biggest mistake, like decision is the greatest power. This is what I always tell people too, that once you decide something and you decide that there is no other option, he said, whether you make a good decision or a bad decision, not a bad morally, but like not the better decision. He said, as long as you marry that decision and you stay with it and you never ever leave it, he
Mhm.
said, you can succeed it. But it's the people who get in a decision, then they move out. The other thing, Think and Grow Rich, it talks about people who are successful make decisions quickly, and they change those decisions slowly, like to get out of them. And that people who are not successful make decisions very, very slowly, and they get out of them quickly.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Um,
it's like you were 12, you got your specialized knowledge, right? You keep, and like, I don't care, no matter what. Think about everybody who's been successful, how many times they have failed and have been turned down.
yeah.
It's insurmountable. It's
Yeah.
the 36,000 and then one that you make. You just got to keep going.
Right.
Like, how long do you wait for your child to walk?
Mm.
I think Jim Rohn says that. How long do you wait, Daniel?
Until it walks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the freaking answer. How long do you wait until you're at Madison Square Garden?
Until I'm there.
Until you're there. Exactly. Exactly. You go until you go there.
Right.
Okay. All right. So tell me, what else do we want to talk about? Because I think we got to go.
I think so. I
We
think
were like chatting a long time. Don't you
absolutely.
people leave early? It's okay if you do. I understand. I'm only kidding.
I get it. It's
Yeah,
long.
we
It's
do.
long.
It is long. Listen to it in increments, but if you're at this end, you already got to the end. So I don't.
Yes, we're proud. We're proud of you for making it.
Thank you for listening for so long. So wait, Daniel, because no, I was going to say something disparaging about us, but I'm not going to. So Daniel, where can people find you? You already kind of said. Oh, and
Yeah.
oh wait, and Dan has a show August 5th. Okay, Governors in Levittown. It on the patio, so it's outside, social distancing. Do you have
Yes.
to wear a mask while you make jokes?
I do not have to wear masks while I make
Thank
jokes.
God.
You have to wear a mask while you're walking your table, but it'd be hard to eat a quesadilla with a mask on, so you can pop
Exactly.
it right on off when you're there. don't have to wear a mask on stage, but the patio is awesome. They just opened it up a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I've done 2 shows there already over the last like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And they're killer shows. So yeah, August 5th, Governor's Levittown on the patio. That would be awesome.
Yes. And you know what I'm thinking? Can you imagine if you were doing your comedy and like everybody had a mask on so you could not tell if they were smiling, laughing, like what they were feeling? Be like, oh my God, like I have nothing to measure here. That'd be so depressing. But anyhow, so, but you'd hear the like laughing underneath.
It's muffled. It's all muffled.
Yeah. Grace had to do it audition and she had to sing through a mask.
Really?
Yeah, isn't that weird? But okay, so listen. So everybody, follow us.
Yes.
Share us.
Yes.
Be happy. Find the thing that you're great at. Decide what you want and never leave it. Decide to do it. There are no other options. Success is our obligation. Okay, you are obligated to succeed as far as you are made to succeed in this life. It is our job. Okay, do not allow the pull from our kind of collective belief that we have to be against one another in order to succeed. That's not true. We can all do it together. So when I succeed, you succeed. And we want you to succeed. We want to see you, whoever is listening, get as far as you possibly can. If we can help you, send us a message. We'd love to help you. We mean it. Okay? You mean that too?
Yes.
Dan? Yeah. Any rising stars want to talk to Dan or anything, you know, seriously, leave a comment. Instagram, Daniel _LaRocco.
Dan _
You're Jesus.
No, you're fine. You're
Say it
fine.
again. Say it again.
The Instagram is Dan _LaRocco. That's that.
Okay. And the other one, Facebook, Daniel LaRocco. Is that what you said?
That's my name, Daniel LaRocco. That's
okay.
that.
All right. So now we are going to do our outro. We're going to say goodbye. We hope you guys have an absolutely beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day, week, and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for listening, guys. We really appreciate you. Hey, Dan. Thank you, Dan, for being on our show.
Allison, for having me. This was awesome. I had a great time.
Bye. We're still recording. Don't say anything. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. Okay, I'm going to stop it.